Beneath the familiar stories of history lie entire worlds we have forgotten. This journey uncovers 25 lost civilizations hidden under the glory of the empires that came after them, revealing why their rediscovery reshapes everything we know about our past. You will discover how a peaceful society built pyramids without warfare, and why a desert kingdom mastered water in a land of sand. What can these fallen cultures teach us about resilience in the face of our own challenges? The streets of Mohenjo-Daro were laid out with a precision that would not be seen again for thousands of years. This was not a city that grew by accident. It was a city that was designed. Every brick matched the next, and a sophisticated network of drains ran beneath the streets, carrying waste away from homes and public wells. This was the Indus Valley Civilization, a society that flourished from around 3,300 to 1,300 before the Common Era across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. While later empires in the region would build monumental palaces and temples to their gods and kings, the Indus people left behind something arguably more modern, a testament to communal living. Their cities show no obvious signs of royal tombs, grand palaces, or massive temples. There are no giant statues of conquerors. Instead, we find a remarkable uniformity in their artifacts, from the standard size of their bricks to the intricate seals carved with animals and a script that no one today can read. This has led many archaeologists like Jonathan Mark Kenoyer to suggest this might have been a more egalitarian society, one governed by collective needs rather than the glory of a single ruler. Their silence is profound. We have their writing, a script found on thousands of seals and tablets, but it remains undeciphered. Their voice is lost to us. What stories of their daily lives, their beliefs, their laws are trapped in those symbols? We know they were master artisans and global traders, with their distinctive seals turning up in the ruins of Mesopotamian cities thousands of miles away. Yet their civilization eventually faded, likely strained by shifts in climate and the changing course of rivers. Their greatest legacy may not be in gold or conquest, but in a simple, revolutionary idea that a society's greatness can be measured by the quality of life it provides for all its people, a concept that was quietly absorbed into the fabric of later South Asian cultures. From this meticulously planned world, we journey to a completely different landscape, where another forgotten civilization mastered a seemingly impossible environment. While the Indus Valley celebrated urban order, a different kind of genius was flourishing in the heart of Central Asia's deserts. The Oxus Civilization thrived as a network of powerful oasis cities, with Gana-Depes standing as its monumental heart. For centuries, this Bronze Age society, also known as the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex, built a world of circular fortresses and sprawling settlements between 2,300 and 1,700 before the Common Era. Theirs was a kingdom of trade and metal, a crucial crossroads where ideas from Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the Eurasian steppes converged and were transformed. Excavations reveal a society of profound artisans, creators of intricate golden vessels and composite animal figures that seem to pulse with a spiritual life we can only guess at. Their unique seals and amulets, often depicting hybrid creatures and gods, suggest a complex mythology that was entirely their own. According to archaeologist Frederick Talmadge Hebert, this was not an isolated culture, but a dynamic hub whose influence rippled across the ancient world, likely playing a key role in transmitting technological innovations like advanced metallurgy. They mastered their harsh environment, but their success may have contained the seeds of their downfall. The lifeblood of their civilization was the Oxus River, and when its courses shifted, as rivers sometimes do, these bustling centers were gradually abandoned, their people dispersing and their distinct identity slowly fading. The great Persian empires that later rose in the region, like the Achaemenids, built upon their lands and absorbed their people, burying the memory of the Oxus beneath layers of imperial glory. This raises a haunting question. In a globally connected world, does trade spread a culture's influence, or does it ultimately dilute that culture until it vanishes into its neighbors? From this lost crossroads, our search for forgotten foundations leads us to the sparkling waters of the Mediterranean, to a society that laid the groundwork for everything we associate with ancient Greece. The vibrant frescoes of Knossos show a world of swirling dolphins and athletic bull leapers, a civilization that thrived with a joy for life long before the myths of classical Greece. This was the Minoan Civilization, a maritime power that dominated the Aegean from the island of Crete from around 2700 to 1100 before the Common Era. Their sprawling palatial centers, like the labyrinthine complex at Knossos, were not fortified castles but open, multi-story structures filled with storerooms, workshops, and living quarters, all connected by corridors so complex they likely inspired the later Greek legend of the Minotaur's labyrinth. The absence of defensive walls speaks volumes, suggesting a long period of secure peace and confidence in their control of the seas. Their sophisticated plumbing included terracotta pipes for running water and even a flushing toilet system, a level of comfort that would not be common again for over 1,000 years. Their art is a window into their spirit, bursting with scenes of nature, graceful processions, and the famous bull leaping ritual, a breathtaking acrobatic feat that may have held deep religious significance. At the heart of this society, archaeologists like Sir Arthur Evans found compelling evidence of a culture that revered the divine feminine. Figurines and seals repeatedly depict powerful goddesses, often accompanied by snakes and double-headed axes, leading to theories that Minoan society may have been matriarchal or at least centered on the worship of a mother goddess. Their economic and cultural reach was vast, with their distinctive pottery and goods found from Egypt to the Levant, all facilitated by their advanced seafaring skills. Yet they left one of history's most tantalizing puzzles, a written language known as Linear A. While the later Mycenaean Linear B script has been deciphered, revealing an early form of Greek, Linear A remains a mystery, its meanings locked away on clay tablets, silently holding the records of their administration and perhaps their beliefs. Their end was as dramatic as their culture. A cataclysmic volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, one of the largest in human history, likely triggered massive tsunamis and crippled their naval power, leaving them vulnerable to invasion by the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece. This colossal natural disaster may have also seeded the legend of Atlantis, a story told for centuries about a sophisticated island civilization that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. How much of our history is shaped by such sudden, unimaginable catastrophes, and when a civilization falls so completely, does its true story fade into fact, or does it become something even more powerful, the stuff of legend? From this island of myths and monumental ruins, we travel to a desert kingdom whose wealth and power once rivaled that of Egypt itself. The pyramids of Meroe stand not as echoes of Egypt, but as bold declarations of a rival kingdom's own power. Far to the south, in the lands of Nubia, the kingdom of Kush built an empire so formidable that it once conquered its northern neighbor, ruling as the pharaohs of Egypt's 25th dynasty. For centuries, from around 1070 before the Common Era to 350 of the Common Era, Kush was a center of immense wealth and military might. a civilization that mastered iron production on an industrial scale and controlled the lucrative trade routes that crisscrossed the Sahara. Their capital at Marajoara became a furnace of the ancient world, its slag heaps testifying to a vast ironworking industry that armed their warriors and fueled their economy. Yet their greatest source of power lay beneath the ground, in the rich gold mines that made the very word Nubia synonymous with gold for the Egyptians. This wealth financed the construction of their own distinct pyramids, which are steeper and more compact than the Egyptian ones, dotting the skyline at royal cemeteries like El Kuru with elaborate underground tombs filled with jewelry, weapons, and artifacts for the afterlife. These burials reveal a rich spiritual life deeply connected to both local traditions and the gods of Egypt, particularly the lion-headed warrior goddess Sekhmet and the state deity Amun. They even developed their own written language, Meroitic, though today its surviving texts remain only partially understood, a silent history waiting to be fully heard. Scholars like Derek Welsby point to Kush's incredible resilience, fending off the mighty Assyrian Empire and later negotiating a famous peace with the Romans that spared them a full-scale invasion. So why is this powerful kingdom often a mere footnote in the grand narratives of Egypt and Rome? Its eventual decline was not due to military defeat, but to the slow, relentless pressure of environmental change. As desertification crept in and trade routes shifted, their economic foundation eroded. The rise of the Aksumite kingdom in modern-day Ethiopia further isolated them, until the once mighty Kushite power faded from the historical spotlight, its achievements buried beneath the overwhelming glory of its neighbors. This forces us to ask a difficult question: why do we remember the conquerors so vividly, while the cultures that displayed profound resilience against overwhelming odds often slip from our collective memory? And how does the slow, silent stress of a changing environment reshape a civilization as decisively as any war? Our search for lost worlds now crosses the Atlantic to a mysterious culture that left behind colossal stone heads as its only message to the future. Deep in the arid Supe Valley of Peru, the pyramids of Caral rise from the desert, silent witnesses to a society that thrived in profound peace. This is the Caral-Supe Civilization, a network of cities that flourished from around 2600 to 2000 before the Common Era, making it the oldest known civilization in the Americas. Its rediscovery, led by archaeologist Ruth Shady, fundamentally rewrote the history of the continent, proving that complex urban life emerged here at nearly the same time as in Egypt and Mesopotamia. The scale of their architecture is staggering, with a main pyramid mound that required the movement of countless tons of stone and earth, all organized without the whip of a tyrant or the threat of an enemy. What makes Caral truly revolutionary is what archaeologists have not found. There are no fortifications, no defensive walls, and no signs of warfare on any of the human remains uncovered. Their weapons were not clubs or spears, but shovels and baskets, tools for communal labor. This was a society that apparently chose cooperation over conflict, building its monuments together for reasons that were likely spiritual and social, not militaristic. How did they achieve such complexity without the driving force of organized violence that we so often assume is necessary for civilization? Their economy was a masterpiece of environmental adaptation, a clever symbiosis between the desert and the sea. They farmed cotton in the valley using intricate irrigation canals and wove it into the vast fishing nets that supplied their protein from the nearby Pacific Ocean. They even developed an early form of record-keeping, using knotted strings that strikingly resemble the later Inca quipu, suggesting a long-lasting tradition of administrative thought in the Andes. Their pyramids and circular plazas were precisely aligned with celestial bodies, showing a deep understanding of astronomy that guided their rituals and their calendar. The entire city was a carefully orchestrated landscape of power and belief, designed to resonate with the cosmos. So why did this peaceful, sophisticated society vanish? The evidence points not to invasion but to climate change. A series of severe droughts and earthquakes likely forced the people to abandon their sacred centers, dispersing into smaller communities and carrying their knowledge with them. Their legacy lived on, subtly woven into the fabric of every subsequent Andean culture, from the Chavin to the Inca. The silent, sun-baked stones of Caral challenge one of our most basic assumptions about human nature and progress. Must societal advancement always be paved with conquest, or did we once know another way? From this ancient American experiment in peace, our journey through forgotten worlds takes us to another society that transformed its landscape, not with pyramids but with earth. The great earthen mound of Monk's Mound at Cahokia still rises 100 feet above the Mississippi floodplain, a silent titan that once anchored a city of thousands. This was the heart of the Cahokia Civilization, a sprawling pre-Columbian metropolis that, at its peak around the year 1050 of the Common Era, was more populous than London at the same time. For 3 centuries, this urban center of the Mississippian culture thrived, a complex chiefdom organized around a vast grand plaza where ceremonies and markets would have drawn crowds from across the region. Their astronomical knowledge was encoded in Woodhenge, a circle of massive cedar posts that functioned as a sophisticated sun calendar, marking the solstices and equinoxes to guide their agricultural and ritual cycles. Yet this flourishing society left behind no written records to tell its own story. How do we understand the rise and fall of such a powerful urban center without a single written word? Archaeologists like Timothy R. Porcatat pieced together its history from the earth itself, revealing a society built on long-distance trade, powerful religious beliefs, and a stark social hierarchy. Artifacts unearthed from the city show masterful craftsmanship, from intricately decorated pottery to beautifully worked copper plates and shells imported from the Gulf of Mexico, evidence of a vast trade network that connected cultures across North America. The city's power, however, had a darker side. At Mound 72, excavations revealed a grim scene, the remains of over 50 young women and several men, all apparently sacrificed in a single event, likely to honor a buried leader. This practice, alongside the spread of Cahokia's distinct cultural symbols like the birdman motif, a figure part man and part bird of prey, points to a powerful, theocratic government that wielded both spiritual and political authority. So what caused this great city to empty out by the 1300s, its mounds reclaimed by the prairie? The decline was likely not a single catastrophe, but a slow unraveling. The city's very size may have led to resource depletion, with nearby forests cleared for building and firewood. A period of cooler temperatures and poor harvests, a phenomenon called the Little Ice Age, would have placed immense strain on their agricultural system. It is possible that social unrest grew as the ruling class failed to maintain their divine favor in the face of hunger and hardship. The people eventually dispersed, their knowledge and traditions carried by descendant communities who became the historic Native American tribes of the region. Cahokia's story is a powerful lesson in sustainability. Its grand earthen monuments stand as a testament to human ingenuity, but also as a warning of how even the most impressive societies can be vulnerable to the slow, cumulative pressures of environmental change and their own consumption. How do we balance our own urban ambitions with the limits of the natural world? From this lost city of mounds, we journey to a kingdom that faced a similar challenge with water, but engineered a spectacular solution. Long before the stone faces of Angkor Wat gazed silently upon the world, their story was already being written in water and earth. In the fertile plains and tangled jungles of Cambodia, the predecessors to the mighty Khmer Empire engineered a world of remarkable sophistication. The Funan and Chenla cultures, flourishing from the 1st to the 9th centuries of the Common Era, mastered a landscape defined by monsoons. They did not just live with the water, they commanded it, constructing vast, intricate canal systems that did far more than prevent floods. These waterways were the arteries of their civilization, channeling life-giving water to expansive rice paddies that fueled a population boom and facilitating transport and trade between their settlements. This was an early hydraulic society, a prototype for the even more elaborate system that would later sustain the great city of Angkor. Their genius, however, was not confined to engineering. At ports like Ok-Eo, a bustling hub of Funan, archaeologists have unearthed gold jewelry, Roman coins, and seals from Persia and India, painting a picture of a maritime network that connected Southeast Asia to the wider world. It was through this trade that Indian culture flowed into the region, bringing with it Sanskrit writing, Hindu deities like Shiva and Vishnu, and the teachings of the Buddha. Yet this was not a simple imposition of foreign ideas. As historian Michael D. Coe observed, these cultures were active participants, blending these new concepts with their own deep-rooted indigenous beliefs to create a spiritual and political tapestry entirely unique to the region. You can see this fusion in one of the most enduring legacies of the Chenla period, the temple city of Samba Pre Kuk. Its graceful brick towers, adorned with intricate carvings, represent some of the earliest permanent temple architecture in the region, a direct architectural ancestor to the grander structures of Angkor. These were not just places of worship, they were statements of power, linking local rulers to the divine authority of the gods. But why is the foundational work of these cultures so often forgotten, overshadowed by the glory of their successors? Their history is pieced together from fragments, from scattered stone inscriptions and accounts from Chinese diplomats who visited their courts. The political landscape was one of competing city-states and shifting alliances, a fragmentation that the later Khmer emperors would ultimately conquer and unify. The very infrastructure they perfected, the canals and the agricultural surplus, became the bedrock upon which a more famous empire was built, ultimately obscuring the builders themselves. This raises a profound question about the nature of legacy. How does the invisible framework of infrastructure, more than any single temple or king, ultimately determine the longevity of an empire? From these water-managed kingdoms of Southeast Asia, our path leads to the vast, sun-drenched savannas of Africa, where another empire built its power on a very different kind of foundation. The gold dust of the Ghana Empire built a kingdom of legends in West Africa, a realm so wealthy that its very name became synonymous with riches. Flourishing from around 300 to 1200 of the Common Era, this empire, also known to its people as Wagadu, was the first of the great West African empires, a precursor to the more famous Mali and Songhai. Its power did not come from vast gold mines worked by its own people, but from its absolute control over the trade routes that carried the precious metal north across the Sahara. The empire sat as a strategic intermediary, taxing the caravans laden with gold from the south and salt from the north, creating an economy of almost unimaginable scale. Arab historians like al-Bakri wrote of a royal audience where the king, adorned in gold, presided over a court of magnificent splendor, with even the dogs at his throne wearing collars of gold and silver. This centralized state, as described by scholars like Nehemiah Levtzian, possessed a sophisticated administrative system and a powerful military, yet it was notably tolerant, allowing Islam to flourish in its trading centers while traditional Sonic religions continued to be practiced. The capital at Kumbai Sale was a cosmopolitan marvel, a city divided into two distinct districts, one for the Muslim merchant community with its 12 mosques, and another that housed the royal palace and the traditional spiritual heart of the empire. The silence surrounding the source of their gold was a matter of state policy and economic genius. The location of the gold fields was a closely guarded secret, and trade was conducted through a legendary method of silent barter, where merchants would leave their goods and retreat, allowing the local people to take them and leave what they considered a fair amount of gold in return. This system prevented direct conflict and maintained the mystery that protected their most valuable resource. Through this controlled trade, the Ghana Empire became a crucial conduit for the southward spread of Islam, not through conquest but through commerce and cultural exchange. So how does an economy built entirely on trade rather than production create such a stable and long-lasting empire? And what does its eventual decline tell us about the fragility of such a system? The empire's weakening was a slow unraveling caused by a combination of factors, including prolonged drought that strained its agricultural base, internal rivalries, and relentless pressure from the Almoravid movement to the north. Its eventual fall was not an utter destruction, but a dispersal of its power and people, with its cultural and political legacy living on directly in the empires that followed. The story of Ghana forces us to confront a difficult truth about sustainability. Can a civilization built on the control of a resource, rather than the resilience of its own land and people, truly endure? From the golden heart of West Africa, we now set sail across the world's largest ocean, to islands where a different kind of empire learned to thrive in profound isolation. The open ocean was their domain, a highway of waves and stars that carried families to new worlds. This was the world of the Lapita Culture, a seafaring people who, from around 1600 to 500 before the Common Era, performed one of humanity's most audacious acts of exploration, the settlement of the remote Pacific Islands. Their signature was a distinctive pottery, decorated with intricate geometric patterns pressed into the clay with a toothed stamp, a design so consistent across thousands of miles of ocean that it acts as a trail of breadcrumbs for archaeologists. These were not random voyages, they were deliberate, planned migrations across vast, empty seascapes, journeys that required an almost supernatural understanding of the stars, the winds, and the subtle patterns of the waves. They traveled in large, double-hulled canoes capable of carrying dozens of people, along with their precious cargo of domesticated animals like pigs, chickens, and dogs, and the root crops that would become the foundation of life on islands from the Bismarck Archipelago all the way to Samoa. According to archaeologist Patrick Vinton Kirch, the Lapita are the direct ancestors of the Polynesian, Micronesian, and some coastal Melanesian peoples we know today. Yet the Lapita themselves remain a ghost in the archaeological record. Their settlements were often small, and the tropical climate has destroyed almost everything except their most durable artifacts, their pottery shards, shell tools, and stone adzes. We have their beautiful art, but we have lost the artists. What kind of society were they? The evidence points to a culture organized around kinship and lineage, where status was likely earned through successful voyages and the ability to establish new communities. Their social structure was probably flexible, built for mobility and adaptation, a necessary trait for colonizing a string of islands that had never before felt a human footprint. A single pottery shard from the Santa Cruz Islands, stamped with a complex face motif, is not just a piece of clay, it is a frozen moment of their identity, a symbol system that would eventually evolve into the iconic tapa cloth designs and tattoo art of later Polynesian cultures. Their story forces us to confront two profound mysteries. What deep, unshakable drive compels human beings to sail into a literal void, toward a horizon with no guarantee of land. And how do we faithfully reconstruct the history of a people whose world was built not of stone and empire, but of wood, fiber, and the boundless sea, materials that returned to the earth almost as quickly as their settlers arrived upon it? From these voyages of the vast Pacific, our search for forgotten foundations returns to the cradle of civilization in the Middle East, to a culture whose innovations were so fundamental they became invisible. The ziggurat of Chog-Hazanbil rises from the Iranian plateau, a towering temple complex built not for Mesopotamian gods but for the Elamite deity Inshushinak. For over 2,000 years, the Elamite civilization thrived as a powerful and independent force in what is now southwestern Iran, a kingdom that was Mesopotamia's enduring rival, trading partner, and sometimes conqueror. While Sumerian poems often depicted them as warlike barbarians from the highlands, this was a sophisticated culture with its own unique language, a script that remains only partially deciphered, and a succession of powerful capital cities like Anshan and Susa. They were master metalworkers, producing intricate artifacts that circulated across the ancient world, and their architects pioneered the use of glazed bricks and ornate facades, techniques that would later be adopted and celebrated by their Persian successors. The resilience of Elam, as highlighted by scholar Daniel T. Potts, is staggering. They withstood repeated invasions from the mighty Assyrian Empire, their cities sacked and rebuilt, their identity refusing to be erased. Yet in most historical accounts they are relegated to the periphery, a footnote in the epic of Mesopotamia. Why is a civilization that interacted with Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon for millennia so often painted as a mere outsider? Their religious life centered on a distinct pantheon, with Inshushinak, the lord of Susa, presiding as a god of the underworld and oaths, a figure of immense power in their society. Elamite legal codes, known from surviving inscriptions, reveal a complex society that valued order and literacy, their influence subtly weaving into the legal traditions of their neighbors. They were not a barrier between East and West, but a vital bridge, facilitating the flow of goods, ideas, and technologies across the Iranian plateau. The very bricks of Chog-Hazanbil are stamped with the names of the kings who built it, a silent, permanent claim to their glory. So what does the story of Elam teach us about cultural persistence in the shadow of an empire? It forces us to question the historical narratives written by the victors. When one culture labels another as barbaric, is it a description of reality, or merely a tool to justify conquest and diminish a rival's achievements? The Elamites were not forgotten because they were insignificant, but because their story was ultimately absorbed and overwritten by the overwhelming legacy of Persia. Their enduring spirit invites us to look closer at the margins of history, where truly resilient cultures often make their stand. From this long-enduring kingdom on the Iranian plateau, we cross into the mists of ancient Europe, where a mysterious and influential culture left behind a legacy written entirely in gold. Long before the first cities of classical Europe, the settlements of the Vinča culture hummed with a complexity that defies our simplest definitions of civilization. Across the Balkans, from around 5,700 to 4,500 before the Common Era, their large, densely packed villages represented a startling leap in human organization. At sites like Vinča below Brdo, just outside modern Belgrade, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of a society that lived in planned, long-term dwellings, practiced some of the earliest copper metallurgy in the world, and produced a stunning array of ritual objects and anthropomorphic figurines. These artifacts, particularly the haunting clay figures with their exaggerated features, suggest a spiritual world rich with symbolism, a world where the boundaries between the human, the animal, and the divine were profoundly blurred. The most tantalizing mystery they left behind, however, is not in their sculptures but in their markings. On clay tablets and artifacts, they inscribed a series of symbols, a collection of lines, crosses, and swirls that some scholars, like the influential archaeologist Marajoara Culture, have argued was a form of proto-writing. Was this a simple system of property marks and ritual signs, or was it a true script, a way to record language that has been forever lost to us? The debate continues, forcing us to ask a fundamental question: what truly separates a complex society from a civilization, and at what point do abstract marks transform into a system for recording thought? The Vinča people did not build pyramids or palaces, but their innovations in metalworking and their hints of social stratification show a society on the cusp of something new, a path that was abruptly altered. Their world was eventually absorbed by the migrations of incoming Indo-European groups, their distinct identity dissolving into the fabric of later European cultures. Yet their legacy may be far more profound than stone monuments. Could the mythological underpinnings of ancient Europe, the stories of Earth Mothers and sea chthonic spirits, find their earliest roots in the clay figurines and ritual practices of these Neolithic farmers? From this ancient European enigma, our journey takes us to the arid landscapes of the Arabian Peninsula, where another forgotten civilization mastered the art of survival. The Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh describes a land of immortality, a paradise called Dilmun, a place of sweet, life-giving water where the sun god Utu brought forth fresh water from the earth. This was not merely a myth, it was a real civilization, a mercantile powerhouse whose wealth and influence made it legendary. The Dilmun Civilization flourished as a crucial trade hub in the Persian Gulf from around 3000 to 600 before the Common Era, centered on the islands of Bahrain and the adjacent Arabian coast. In a world of emerging empires, Dilmun mastered the art of connection, becoming the essential intermediary in a vast network that linked the Mesopotamian city-states with the distant Indus Valley. Its lifeblood was a combination of geography and geology, sitting astride the major sea lanes and blessed with abundant freshwater springs that bubbled up from underground aquifers, creating an oasis in the sea that could resupply the long-distance voyages of ancient merchants. The thousands of burial mounds that still dot the landscape of Bahrain, some of the largest prehistoric cemeteries in the world, are a silent testament to a populous and prosperous society that lasted for millennia. Archaeologist Harriet E. W. Crawford points to the twin pillars of their economy, the bounty of the sea and the fertility of the land. Dilmun's pearling industry was legendary, its divers plunging into the Gulf's depths to retrieve treasures that would adorn the elites of Mesopotamia and beyond. On land, they cultivated vast date palm orchards, creating an agricultural surplus that fueled their growth. Yet for all its material wealth, Dilmun's political history remains frustratingly vague, its story pieced together from the records of its trading partners and the silent evidence of its archaeology. At the heart of their spiritual world stood the Barbar Temple Complex, a magnificent structure dedicated to Enki, the Sumerian god of wisdom and fresh water. This temple, with its sacred pool and intricate stone carvings, was a place of pilgrimage for centuries, a clear indication that Dilmun's influence extended beyond commerce into the realm of religion, subtly shaping the beliefs of the mighty Mesopotamians. But how did this paradise of trade maintain its neutrality and power for so long? Their true genius was in logistics, not conquest. Dilmun's merchants controlled the flow of a vital resource, copper, which was mined in Oman and shipped through their ports to the bronze-hungry cities of Sumer. Excavations at their capital, Kal at al-Bahrain, reveal a cosmopolitan world, with layers of ruins showing imported Indus Valley seals, Mesopotamian cylinder seals, and finely crafted local pottery, all evidence of a society that thrived on cultural exchange. So what caused this vibrant crossroads to fade from prominence? Its decline was likely a slow death by economic obsolescence. As maritime technology improved, traders began to bypass Dilmun, sailing directly to the sources of goods. The rising power of the Assyrian and later the Babylonian empires may have imposed stricter control over the trade routes, squeezing out the middleman. The very interconnectedness that built their paradise ultimately made them vulnerable to shifts in the global economy of the ancient world. The story of Dilmun forces us to ponder the line between myth and history. Was it a real place that inspired paradise, or did its legendary status as a paradise allow it to become a real economic power? And what truly defines a crossroads civilization? Is it the goods that pass through, or the ideas that are left behind to take root? From this gulf of myth and commerce, we now journey to the heart of ancient China, where a mysterious kingdom cast in bronze laid the foundations for a millennia of tradition. The earth of Sichuan yielded not just artifacts, but a reality entirely alien to Chinese history. In 1986, workers digging a clay pit uncovered a treasure that would shatter the conventional narrative, a collection of life-sized bronze heads with exaggerated, almost otherworldly features, colossal masks with gilded gold foil, and a towering bronze tree over 13 feet tall. This was the Sanxingdui Culture, a civilization that thrived in the Chengdu Plain from around 1600 to 1100 before the Common Era, a contemporary and a stark rival to the more famous Shang dynasty to the north. While the Shang were casting elegant ritual vessels inscribed with early Chinese script, the artists of Sanxingdui were creating a completely different visual language, one of bulging eyes, trumpet-shaped ears, and faces that seem to gaze into a spiritual realm we can no longer access. Their bronze casting technology was as advanced as the Shang's, but their artistic vision was entirely their own, a testament to a separate and sophisticated cultural genesis. Archaeologists like Lai Shuacheng have linked this culture to the legendary Shu Kingdom, a place mentioned in later texts but long thought to be mythical. The greatest mystery of Sanxingdui is not just its existence, but its deliberate end. At the peak of their power, the people meticulously buried their most sacred objects in two large pits, laying down their colossal bronzes, their jade tablets, and their gold scepters in an orderly fashion before covering them with earth. They left no written explanation, no royal tombs, and no evidence of invasion. Why would a civilization choose to inter its own soul? The leading theory points to a massive earthquake or a sudden shift in the course of the nearby Min River, a climatic catastrophe that may have shattered their worldview and led them to ritually bury their gods, believing them to have failed. The artifacts themselves speak of a society obsessed with the cosmos and shamanistic ritual. A single gold mask so thin and perfectly crafted might have been fitted to a wooden statue of a priest-king, transforming a mortal man into a divine intermediary. The towering bronze tree, with its birds, dragons, and hanging fruits, is almost certainly a representation of a world tree, a cosmic axis connecting the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. This was not a culture building toward a unified Chinese identity. It was a vibrant, distinct civilization with likely trade connections reaching into the jungles of Southeast Asia. The silence of Sanxingdui is deafening. They left us breathtaking art but no words, forcing us to ask, why do some societies speak to us through text, while others communicate only through the powerful, enigmatic language of symbol and form? Their rediscovery profoundly enriches our understanding of the past, proving that the cradle of Chinese civilization was not a single source, but a mosaic of diverse and brilliant cultures, each with its own path. This journey from the mysteries of ancient China now leads us to the high Andes, where another forgotten society mastered its environment in a way that still baffles engineers today. The highland cities of the Wari were connected by roads that snaked across the Andes, a network of imperial power built centuries before the Inca made it famous. From around 600 to 1000 of the Common Era, the Wari Empire forged the first true imperial state in the Andes, a precursor that provided the essential blueprint for later Inca glory. Their capital, Huari, was a sprawling urban center of terraced hills and walled compounds, a testament to an administration capable of governing diverse and distant lands. This was not a loose confederation, but a centralized power that projected its influence through a combination of cultural persuasion and military might. Archaeologist Katharina J. Schreiber describes their strategy as a masterclass in imperial integration. They would often build administrative centers in conquered territories, imposing a standardized Wari aesthetic in their distinctive pottery and magnificent textiles, which were so finely woven they rivaled the tapestries of later cultures. Yet they were also pragmatic, allowing local chieftains to retain some power if they accepted Wari overlordship and contributed to the state's economy. Their empire was held together by the very roads they built, which allowed for the rapid movement of troops, the efficient collection of tribute, and the spread of their religious iconography, including the staff god, a deity that would become a central figure in the Andean spiritual world for centuries. How does an empire successfully integrate dozens of distinct cultures across a vast and mountainous landscape? The Wari answer lay in a system of control that was both ideological and brutally practical. At remote outposts like Cerro Ball, a dramatic mesa-top fortress, evidence points to elaborate feasting rituals. Here, Wari elites would host local leaders, serving chicha beer from finely crafted ceramic vessels as a form of political theater, a display of wealth and power designed to secure loyalty through ceremony rather than constant warfare. This diplomatic feasting was backed by an ingenious system for managing resources. The Wari constructed massive rows of storehouses called kulkas, which enabled them to stockpile surplus food like maize and potatoes. This was not merely a buffer against famine, it was a tool of statecraft, allowing them to redistribute food in times of need and thereby command the allegiance of their subjects. They may have even used a precursor to the Inca quipu, a system of knotted strings, to keep track of these vast stores of wealth and people, suggesting a level of bureaucratic sophistication we are only beginning to understand. So why did this powerful, well-organized empire collapse? The end was likely a slow fragmentation, not a single cataclysm. A prolonged drought in the 11th century would have placed unbearable strain on their agricultural systems and undermined the state's ability to provide food security. In the resulting hardship, outlying provinces may have rebelled, severing the ties that held the empire together. The people eventually abandoned the great capital of Huari, their political unity dissolving, but their cultural legacy did not vanish. It seeped into the very bones of the Andes, providing the foundational ideas of road networks, terrace farming, and state storage that the Inca would later find and perfect. The story of the Wari forces us to ask a difficult question about governance. Can an empire's greatest strength, its centralized control of resources, become its most profound vulnerability when the environment it depends upon begins to change? From this Andean empire of roads and storehouses, our path leads to the rugged peaks of the Caucasus, where another forgotten culture left its mark in metal and myth. Golden treasures from the land of myth whisper a history far older than the legends themselves. In the lush, rain-drenched Colchian lowlands of what is now Georgia, the Colchian culture forged a sophisticated Bronze Age society from the 13th to the 6th century before the Common Era. This was the real world behind the epic of Jason and the Argonauts, a kingdom so rich in gold that the Greeks wove its wealth into the fantastical tale of a golden fleece. For the Colchians, this was not a myth, but a reflection of their daily reality, where master goldsmiths employed a technique using sheepskins to sift placer gold from their rivers, creating a tangible origin for one of history's most enduring stories. How much truth is preserved in the fantastical tales passed down through generations? The archaeological evidence from sites like the Vanni necropolis is breathtaking, revealing elaborate burial chambers where local elites were interred with exquisite gold jewelry, finely crafted bronze axes unique to the region, and a wealth of imported goods, including elegant Greek pottery and silver from the Achaemenid Persian Empire. This was not an isolated backwater, but a vibrant, independent power, a crucial node in trade networks that connected the steppes to the north with the sophisticated empires of the south. As historian David Braund highlights, the Colchians skillfully managed their relationships with the Greek colonies that dotted their coastline and the looming power of Persia, maintaining their distinct identity for centuries. Their innovations were born from their environment, pioneering advanced ironworking and developing a system of wetland agriculture that transformed their marshy homeland into a fertile breadbasket. Yet their story is often absorbed into the grand narrative of later Georgian kingdoms, their foundational role obscured. One of the most persistent mysteries surrounding them is their language, with scholars still debating its possible links to ancient Anatolian or early Kartvelian tongues, a puzzle that underscores how cultures at the crossroads of empires can have their deepest roots blurred by the tides of history. What unique perspectives are lost when we view a civilization only through the records of its more famous neighbors? The Colchian legacy challenges us to listen more closely to the whispers within the myths, to recognize that the most fantastical stories often grow from the seeds of a very real and remarkably resilient human achievement. From this Caucasian kingdom of gold and legend, we set our course for the shores of the Indian Ocean. Long before the great Christian obelisks of Axum pierced the sky, the highlands of the Horn of Africa were already a cradle of sophisticated kingdoms. In what is now Eritrea and northern Ethiopia, the precursors to the Aksumite Empire built a world of stone and trade. The Dğmt Kingdom, flourishing from the 10th to the 5th centuries before the Common Era, was not a primitive beginning but a vibrant civilization in its own right. Its people were master architects, constructing monumental temple complexes like the one at Yaha, a towering structure of polished stone that still stands today, a testament to an engineering skill that would not be out of place centuries later. They were not isolated but pivotal players in a network that stretched across the Red Sea, trading the highly prized frankincense and myrrh with the empires of Egypt and the kingdoms of southern Arabia. This cultural exchange is etched into their very foundations. Archaeologist Rodolfo Fatovich points to a society of fascinating synthesis, where indigenous African traditions blended seamlessly with influences from Saba, a kingdom in modern-day Yemen. They adapted the South Arabian script for their own inscriptions, yet their altars and carved figures depict a distinct, local pantheon of gods, a polytheistic world where the moon god Olmaka was revered alongside deities whose names are now lost to time. Their genius was not only in commerce and religion, but in survival. They engineered intricate irrigation systems to harness the seasonal rains, turning the rugged highlands into productive agricultural land that could support growing urban centers. So why is this foundational period so often skipped over in the rush to tell the story of Axum's imperial glory? The monumental stelae and gold coins of the later empire are easier to see, but they were built upon a bedrock of innovation laid by the Dğmt and other pre-Aksumite cultures. Their story reminds us that an empire's peak is only possible because of the centuries of quiet development that came before. How many other hidden histories are waiting to be uncovered, not by looking for the grandest monuments, but by piecing together the fragments of pottery, the traces of ancient fields, and the faint inscriptions that interdisciplinary research can finally decipher? This search for foundational cultures now takes us across the globe to the dense woodlands of North America, where a society transformed its world with earth and fire. Their vast canals snaked through the Arizona desert, turning barren ground into fields of plenty. The Hohokam culture, flourishing from around 300 to 1450 of the Common Era, engineered one of the most extensive and sophisticated irrigation systems in the pre-Columbian world. In the heart of the Sonoran Desert, they dug over 800 miles of canals by hand, some wide enough to float a canoe, channeling the life-giving waters of the Salt and Gila rivers to sustain a population that swelled into the tens of thousands. Their villages were clusters of pit houses, circular dwellings sunk into the earth for coolness, but their public architecture reveals a society of surprising social complexity. They built large, earthen ball courts, similar to those found in Mesoamerica far to the south, where communities gathered to witness a ritual game that was far more than sport, a sacred drama with profound cosmological meaning. This connection points to a vibrant trade network, with shells from the Pacific coast and copper bells from Mexico turning up in their settlements, evidence of a culture that was deeply integrated into a wider world. Archaeologists like David R. Wilcox study their distinctive red-on-buff pottery, decorated with bold, geometric patterns, and the intricate shell jewelry crafted from glycymerous shells, tracing the reach of Hohokam influence among the ancestral Pueblones who came after them. They developed a sophisticated calendar using stone alignments and horizon markers to track the solstices, timing their planting and their ceremonies with celestial precision. How did they manage such a colossal hydraulic society without the rigid, top-down authority of a king or an emperor? The evidence from a major center like Snaketown suggests they were likely organized as a network of village communities, governed by councils of elders or irrigation managers who coordinated the maintenance and fair distribution of water, a delicate social contract written not on paper, but in the flow of water through their canals. Yet this remarkable society eventually dispersed, their great villages emptying out. The reasons for their decline remain one of archaeology's great debates. Was it a slow, environmental poison? Centuries of irrigation in an arid climate can lead to salinization, where salt accumulates in the soil until nothing can grow. Was it a sudden, catastrophic flood that shattered their delicate canal system? Or did social tensions, perhaps conflicts over water rights or the influence of new migrant groups, unravel the cooperative fabric that held them together? Their legacy, however, did not vanish. When Spanish missionaries arrived centuries later, they found local Owadam peoples already using ancient canals, a direct and living continuation of Hohokam knowledge. The silent, sun-baked remnants of their engineering marvel force us to ask urgent questions for our own time. What can these ancient water masters teach us about managing our own precious resources in an era of growing scarcity? And how does a society achieve monumental works not through the command of a pharaoh, but through the collective will of its people? From these desert engineers, our path leads to the windswept steppes of Central Asia. Their vibrant cities were living crossroads where the languages of the world mingled in crowded marketplaces. The Sogdian Civilization, at its peak from the 4th to the 8th centuries of the Common Era, was not a single empire but a constellation of brilliant city-states, with Samarkand as its dazzling heart. These were the master weavers of the Silk Road, a network of merchants whose caravans did not just carry silk and spices, but the very ideas that would shape continents. They were born multilingual, conducting business from the Chinese court to the Byzantine frontier, and their art became a breathtaking fusion, blending Persian elegance, Indian spirituality, and Chinese grace into a style entirely their own. As historian Etienne de Lavaisière emphasizes, their role was foundational, transmitting entire religions like Buddhism and Manichaeism across the vastness of Asia. We can still hear the whisper of their daily lives in the Sogdian letters, personal correspondences written in their unique script that reveal a society built on contracts, credit, and the deep bonds of family stretched across thousands of miles. At the heart of their cities, the grand murals of Afrasiab and the excavated ruins of Penjikent show a world bursting with color. These vivid frescoes depict everything from epic battles and mythical heroes to intimate scenes of feasting and music, a testament to a people who celebrated life with a profound joie de vivre. Their influence extended far beyond commerce. Sogdian diplomats arranged strategic marriages, like the union of a Sogdian princess with a Turkic Khagan, weaving a web of political alliances that secured their trade routes for generations. But the very openness that defined them also made them vulnerable. The relentless expansion of the Arab conquest in the 8th century brought a new, unifying force that slowly absorbed their distinct identity into the rising Islamic caliphates. Their language faded, their Zoroastrian fire temples were replaced by mosques, and their vibrant city-states were incorporated into a broader Islamic world. The story of the Sogdians forces us to confront a poignant paradox. How do the very societies that connect the world, spreading art, faith, and innovation, often become so diluted by the cultures they link that they ultimately vanish into them? What is lost when a civilization of bridges is itself absorbed, its unique voice fading into the chorus it helped to create? The legacy of these master traders reminds us that some of history's most influential forces are not conquerors on thrones, but merchants in caravanserais, whose true empire was built not on land but on connection. Deep within the Amazon, another forgotten world challenges everything we thought we knew about the jungle. The Amazon rainforest holds a secret beneath its canopy, a civilization that mastered the art of living with the river's pulse. On the vast island of Marajoara at the mouth of the Amazon, the Marajoara culture built a world of earth and clay that thrived for nearly 1,000 years, from 400 to 1300 of the Common Era. They did not fight the seasonal floods, they engineered their landscape to rise above them, constructing hundreds of artificial mounds that lifted their villages, plazas, and cemeteries safely above the water. These were not simple hills, they were the foundations of a complex society, complete with social stratification and a vibrant artistic tradition. The most stunning evidence of their sophistication comes from their pottery. In museums today, you can see their elaborate funerary urns, large clay vessels often shaped like human figures, decorated with intricate geometric patterns and painted with rich red and black slips. These were not mere containers, they were portraits of belief, designed to hold the bones of the deceased in a cycle of death and rebirth that connected the community to the spiritual world. Archaeologist Anna C. Roosevelt's work here has been revolutionary, revealing a society that challenges every assumption about the Amazon as a pristine wilderness incapable of supporting large-scale civilization. The Marajoara people developed raised fields for agriculture, creating fertile plots in the wetlands, and their ceramic technology was so advanced that their fine, thin-walled vessels rivaled the pottery of ancient Peru. One of the most compelling theories to emerge from the artifacts suggests a society with a gender-balanced power structure, where women may have held significant religious and social authority, a social order born from the unique demands of their environment. So why did this innovative culture fade away? The reasons are still debated, but a shift in climate patterns, perhaps altering the flood cycles they so perfectly adapted to, likely played a key role. Their population, which some estimates suggest could have been in the hundreds of thousands, gradually dispersed, their mounds slowly reclaimed by the jungle. The story of the Marajoara forces us to ask two profound questions. How does a relentless environment like the Amazon not just limit, but actively shape the trajectory of a culture, fostering unique forms of resilience and social organization? And why have we been so slow to recognize the monumental achievements of Amazonian civilizations, allowing their histories to remain buried while we celebrate the stone pyramids of drier lands? From the earthen mounds of South America, our search for hidden foundations returns to the ancient shores of Europe. The gleam of Tartessian gold was not a myth, but a testament to a kingdom of legendary wealth. In the mineral-rich lands of southwestern Spain, the Tartessian culture flourished from the 9th to the 6th centuries before the Common Era, a sophisticated society that the Greek historian Herodotus described as a realm of unparalleled silver. They were the crucial bridge, the middlemen who connected the Atlantic trade in tin with the merchant empires of the Phoenicians who settled on their coasts. This was not a primitive outpost, but a vibrant, literate civilization that developed its own unique script, one of the first in all of Western Europe, though its surviving inscriptions are so few that the language remains frustratingly silent. Archaeologists like Adolf Scholten spent their lives searching for its capital, a city lost to time that some have even linked to the fabled Atlantis. The stunning Carambolo treasure, a hoard of 21 pieces of goldwork discovered by chance, reveals their artistic genius with a necklace and pectorals of intricate filigree that depict a world of spirals and palm leaves, possibly worn by a high priest in rituals dedicated to a bull god. Their religious life seems to have centered on this powerful symbol of strength and fertility, with ceremonial sites like Cancho Rono featuring altars and deposits of sacrificed animals, pointing to a complex spiritual world that blended local traditions with influences from their Eastern partners. Their mastery of metallurgy was their true source of power, extracting and working silver and gold on an industrial scale to create the currency of international trade. So why did this wealthy, connected kingdom suddenly vanish from history? The most compelling theory suggests a violent end, perhaps a conflict with the rising naval power of Carthage that disrupted their trade networks and led to the abandonment of their cities. Alternatively, environmental factors like the silting of their rivers may have crippled their economy. The silence that followed was so profound that Tartessos slipped from history into legend, its reality blurred by tall tales. This forces us to ask, when a civilization leaves behind more treasure than text, how much of its true story is inevitably replaced by the myths we create to explain its absence? From this lost kingdom of Iberia, we cross to the opposite side of the globe, to a Southeast Asian civilization whose watery domain was an empire in its own right. Long before the Srivijaya Empire stamped its name across the maritime lanes of Southeast Asia, the river mouths of Sumatra were already humming with a different kind of power. The predecessors to that great thalassocracy, states like Malayu and Kantoli, mastered the art of the coastal kingdom from the 5th to the 7th centuries of the Common Era. Their wealth was not built on vast territorial conquest, but on their absolute control of the Strait of Malacca, one of the most vital shipping channels in the world. These were fluid, riverine polities whose lifeblood was trade, their bustling port cities serving as crucial way stations for merchants sailing between the great civilizations of India and China. They were more than just toll collectors, they were active participants in a cultural and religious revolution. As historian O.W. Walters observed, these kingdoms became early and vibrant centers for the spread of Mahayana Buddhism, establishing monasteries and religious institutions that attracted scholars and pilgrims from across Asia. This spiritual exchange was deeply pragmatic, blending the new Buddhist doctrines with the indigenous animist beliefs that revered the local spirits of the forest and river, creating a unique spiritual tapestry that would endure for centuries. Their economic genius lay in tapping the riches of the interior, trading coveted forest products like rare resins, aromatic woods, and gold for the fine textiles, ceramics, and manufactured goods brought by foreign ships. Archaeological digs in the Jambai region reveal the foundations of this sophisticated world, the remains of brick temples and stupas standing alongside Chinese porcelain and Indian beads, a testament to a society both devout and deeply commercial. Their legacy is also etched in stone, with some of the earliest Sanskrit inscriptions found in the archipelago, demonstrating their adoption of this cosmopolitan language of statecraft and religion. They were master shipbuilders, perfecting the sewn plank and lashed lugboat construction that allowed their vessels to dominate the local seas. So why have these foundational kingdoms been so thoroughly overshadowed by the empire that followed? The very nature of their power held the seed of their obscurity. Their political structures were likely more decentralized, a network of allied ports and river chiefs, which the more centralized Srivijaya would eventually subsume. Their story is also literally washing away, as coastal erosion and rising sea levels steadily consume the very sites where their history is buried. This forces us to ask a pivotal question about our understanding of the past. Why do we so often celebrate the consolidated empire while forgetting the innovative, adaptable networks that made its rise possible? And in an age of climate change, how do we race against time to recover the narratives of civilizations whose homes are being reclaimed by the ocean? Our search for lost foundations now turns from these waterlogged kingdoms to the shifting sands of a vast desert. Deep beneath the scorching sands of the Libyan desert, the Garamantes built an empire on hidden water. From 500 before the Common Era to 700 of the Common Era, this formidable Berber kingdom defied the Sahara by engineering one of the ancient world's most brilliant water systems, the Fagaras. These were not simple wells but vast underground tunnels, sometimes stretching for miles, that tapped into fossil water trapped deep beneath the desert and channeled it gently by gravity to their oases. This network of life-giving veins allowed them to cultivate crops in a hyper-arid landscape, supporting a society of fortified towns, artisans, and a powerful military that even the Romans struggled to subdue. Archaeologist David J. Mattingly's work at their capital, Jerma, has uncovered the remains of multi-room houses built from mud brick, their interiors once filled with imported goods like Roman glass and fine pottery, evidence of a people deeply connected to trans-Saharan trade routes. They were masters of the chariot, using these lightweight, horse-drawn vehicles not just for warfare against Roman incursions, but for controlling the desert trade in gold, salt, and slaves, establishing a social hierarchy with a king and elite class at its apex. Their civilization was a testament to human ingenuity in the face of a brutal environment, yet their story was written almost entirely by their enemies, the Romans, who portrayed them as troublesome desert raiders. How does a society maintain such complexity when its primary resource, ancient groundwater, is finite? The decline of the Garamantes holds a stark lesson. Centuries of drawing from the underground aquifers eventually depleted them, a slow-moving crisis compounded by a drying climate. their sophisticated fogaras began to run dry, their agricultural base shrank, and their political power faded, leaving their cities to be reclaimed by the sands. Their story forces us to ask a pressing question for our own time. In an era of growing water scarcity, what can we learn from a civilization that flourished by mastering a hidden resource, only to vanish when that resource was gone? From this desert kingdom of hidden water, our journey takes us to a world defined by its abundance, the mist-shrouded coast of the Pacific Northwest. The towering cedars of the Pacific Northwest were not just trees, they were the pillars of a world. For thousands of years, the ancestral cultures of the Tlingit, Haida, and their neighbors built a civilization of profound complexity, not with stone and mortar, but with wood and woven fiber. Their sprawling plank longhouses facing the sea were home to sophisticated societies organized into powerful matrilineal clans like the eagle and the raven, each with its own history, responsibilities, and sacred stories. This social fabric was woven together by a legal and economic system based on reciprocity and honor, a system most vividly expressed in the potlatch ceremony. Far from a simple feast, a potlatch was a foundational institution. A chief might host a great potlatch to validate a new title, settle a dispute, or commemorate the raising of a totem pole, distributing immense wealth in the form of finely woven blankets, carved boxes, and food to all the guests. The more a leader gave away, the more their status and the prestige of their entire clan was enhanced. This created a circulating economy of wealth and obligation that bound communities together for generations. Their artistic genius was a language in itself. Master carvers transformed red cedar into towering totem poles that recorded family lineages and mythological events, and into transformation masks with moving parts that could shift from a human face to a raven or a bear during ceremonial dances, making the spiritual world visible. Anthropologist Franz Boas recognized the profound intellectual depth of these traditions, meticulously recording their intricate oral histories and symbolic art, which served as a living library of lore, history, and cosmology. Yet, for all their resilience, these cultures faced a cataclysm. The arrival of European diseases like smallpox decimated their populations, and colonial policies attempted to ban the potlatch, seeing it as a barrier to assimilation. Despite this, the knowledge endured, preserved in the memories of elders and in the stunning objects held in museum collections today, from intricate chilkat robes woven with mountain goat wool to polished horn spoons and copper shields. How does a society maintain its identity when its physical continuity is so violently disrupted? The answer lies in the enduring power of oral tradition and the deep, inherent knowledge of ecological balance. These cultures understood the cedar forests and salmon runs not as resources to be exploited, but as kin in a reciprocal relationship, a model of sustainability our modern world is only beginning to relearn. Their legacy challenges us to listen to the stories that have been told for millennia, and to recognize that the greatest monuments are not always made of stone, but of stories carefully passed down and art deeply lived. From these forests of story and spirit, our final journey returns us to the familiar waters of the Mediterranean, to a civilization whose name is legendary, but whose reality is far more mysterious. The rugged landscape of Sardinia is still guarded by silent stone sentinels, the mysterious Nuragic towers built by a civilization that mastered their island world. The Nuragic people, flourishing from 1800 to 500 before the Common Era, constructed over 7,000 of these unique megalithic structures, complex beehive-shaped towers that served as fortresses, dwellings, and perhaps centers of political power. This was not a primitive culture, but a sophisticated Bronze Age society that engaged in vibrant trade across the Mediterranean, their distinctive pottery and bronze artifacts turning up in Cyprus and mainland Italy long before the Phoenicians established their own colonies. Archaeologist Giovanni Liliu dedicated his life to uncovering their story, piecing together evidence from sites like the magnificent Nuragic complex, a central tower surrounded by a labyrinthine village of circular huts, all enclosed within a formidable defensive wall. This layout reveals a society organized for both community and protection, a people confident in their own strength and identity. Their artistic legacy is captured in small, expressive bronze figurines depicting warriors, chieftains, and animals with a startling vitality. These were not just decorative items, they were likely votive offerings, hinting at a spiritual life centered around water cults. At the sacred spring of Tempisu, they built an intricate water temple, a masterpiece of ashlar masonry where rituals honored the life-giving power of a natural aquifer. How do we interpret a society that left no deciphered texts to speak its name? The Nuragic language remains a profound mystery, its words lost to us, unrelated to the Indo-European languages that would later dominate the region. We can only read their history in the stones they so skillfully piled together and the metal they expertly cast. Their advanced metallurgy produced not only ritual objects but also formidable weapons and practical tools, fueling an economy that connected them to a wider world. So why did this resilient, inventive civilization gradually fade? They were not violently overthrown but slowly absorbed. The arrival of Phoenician traders and later Roman legions introduced new cultural and political pressures. The very isolation that had allowed their unique culture to flourish for over a millennium eventually made them vulnerable to assimilation. Their distinct identity slowly merged with that of the newcomers, their language replaced, their traditions transformed. The silent Nuragi stand as a testament to a profound question. What can an isolated civilization, developing for centuries on its own terms, reveal about the pure, unadulterated spark of human creativity? And when we have no written records to guide us, how much of a culture's true spirit can we ever hope to understand from the silent artifacts it leaves behind? From this island of stone towers, our final journey takes us to the highlands of East Africa, to a kingdom whose monumental legacy was built on a foundation of international trade. The foundations of the Swahili coast were laid long before the stone palaces of Kilwa, in villages where the rhythms of the Indian Ocean met the deep roots of the African interior. From the first millennium before the Common Era to the 8th century of the Common Era, these pre-Islamic communities were not passive recipients of foreign influence, but active architects of a new way of life. They were a dynamic fusion of Bantu-speaking peoples, Arabian traders, and Persian merchants, a blend that created the unique cultural and linguistic tapestry that would become Swahili. Their world was built on a delicate balance, mastering the bounty of the sea through fishing and the cultivation of the land, while also establishing the trade networks that would one day stretch across the ocean. Historian Chapuroka Mkusimba points to their sophisticated understanding of this maritime world, where they traded timber, ivory, and animal skins for glass beads and cloth from distant lands, laying the economic groundwork for the famous city-states to come. Their architectural innovation was both practical and profound, using coral rag, the limestone bedrock of the coast, to construct their earliest permanent buildings. At the site of Shanga, excavations reveal a story of gradual, organic synthesis. Here, archaeologists found one of the earliest mosques in East Africa, a simple, small structure built of timber and thatch, standing alongside the remains of local crafts and domestic life. This was not a sudden replacement of one culture by another, but a slow integration where the deep-seated local traditions of ancestor worship and nature spirits began to coexist and blend with the new religious ideas arriving by sea. The mangrove ecosystems were not just a backdrop, they were the engine of this early society. The complex root systems provided wood for building boats and homes, sheltered juvenile fish, and created a natural barrier that protected their settlements, a perfect example of how these cultures thrived by adapting to, rather than conquering, their environment. The Swahili language itself stands as their greatest monument, a Bantu grammar enriched with a vast vocabulary from Arabic and Persian, a living testament to a hybrid identity forged over centuries. How do coastal cultures navigate the constant ebb and flow of global currents without losing their own distinct voice? And why is it that these blended, hybrid identities are so often written out of our grand historical narratives, even though they represent the most common and resilient form of human civilization? As we reach the end of our list of 25 forgotten civilizations, a profound pattern emerges from their collective silence. These were not failures, but foundational cultures whose innovations in governance, engineering, and social organization were quietly absorbed by their more famous successors. They teach us that history is not a simple march of empires, but a complex tapestry woven from countless threads, many of which have been deliberately hidden or simply forgotten. Their stories challenge our obsession with singular heroes and monumental conquests, reminding us that the most enduring legacies are often the invisible ones: the cooperative spirit of Caral, the water management of the Hohokam, the linguistic blend of the Swahili coast. They force us to reconsider what true resilience looks like, not just the strength to withstand an invasion, but the wisdom to adapt to a changing climate, the creativity to build a society without war, and the quiet persistence of knowledge passed down through generations even after a political system has crumbled. What does the disappearance of these diverse paths to complexity mean for our own globalized world? In forgetting them, we have impoverished our understanding of human potential, narrowing our vision of what is possible. Their rediscovery is more than an academic exercise. It is a crucial recovery of lost alternatives, a reminder that our future may very well depend on lessons learned from these forgotten pasts. Each of these 25 worlds whispers a similar story, a recurring pattern of how civilizations slip into the shadows of history. Their paths to obscurity are paved with common stones, from the relentless pressure of a changing climate to the quiet absorption by a more dominant neighbor. We see the Garamantes depleting their ancient aquifers and the Cahokians grappling with a shifting climate, their stories echoing the modern challenge of resource management in a fragile world. The brilliant innovations of the Oxus and Sogdian cultures were diluted not by defeat, but by their very success in connecting distant lands, their unique identities eventually dissolving into the empires they helped to link. This process of cultural assimilation is a powerful force, where the language, gods, and stories of a vibrant people are slowly overwritten by the narrative of the victor, as the Elamites experienced for centuries under the shadow of Mesopotamia. The very records we rely on are often part of the problem, written by the scribes of Rome or the chroniclers of China, who naturally framed their neighbors and rivals as barbarians or mere footnotes in their own imperial glory. This bias in the historical record creates a profound imbalance, silencing the voices of those who did not write their own history in stone or on papyrus. The work of scholars like Jared Diamond underscores how factors like geographic luck and environmental management were not just background details, but the very foundations of survival or collapse. Yet, as indigenous perspectives rightly remind us, the absence of a written text does not mean the absence of history. The oral traditions of the Pacific Northwest peoples and the living knowledge of the Awadam, who still used ancient Hohokam canals, are vital counter-narratives that challenge the silence of the archaeological record. Every new discovery, from the golden masks of Sanxingdui to the Amazonian mounds of the Marajoara, actively rewrites our textbooks, forcing us to admit how much we still do not know. This ongoing revision brings with it a deep ethical responsibility. How do we excavate a site like a Mississippian burial mound or a Nuragic sacred well with the respect it deserves? The process is not just about extracting artifacts. It is about interpretation, about ensuring that the stories we tell include the descendants of these cultures and honor their understanding of their own past. When we look at the Minoans and Cahokia, two societies separated by an ocean and millennia, we see them grappling with eerily similar pressures of environmental stress and social complexity. Their parallel stories ask us a crucial reflective question. As we piece together these fragmented histories from pottery shards and soil samples, how do we balance our scientific curiosity with our moral duty to the past? The recovery of these lost civilizations is more than an academic puzzle. It is an act of restoring balance to the human story, ensuring that the diverse paths to complexity are not forgotten but learned from. Our journey ends, but the echoes of these 25 lost worlds continue to shape our own. From the meticulously planned streets of the Indus Valley to the coral rag foundations of the Swahili coast, we have walked through a gallery of human ingenuity. These were not failed experiments, but foundational cultures whose quiet innovations in peace, trade, and environmental mastery were quietly woven into the fabric of the empires that followed them. The cooperative spirit of Caral challenges our assumptions about power, while the desert hydraulics of the Garamantes warn us about the limits of even the most brilliant engineering. The vibrant, connected world of the Sogdians reminds us that influence flows not just from the throne, but from the marketplace and the caravan. Each of these societies offers a unique key to understanding the vast spectrum of human possibility, proving that history is not a simple story of winners and losers, but a complex tapestry of countless interconnected cultures, most of whom never wrote their own history in stone. Their collective legacy is a treasure trove of alternative paths, a repository of knowledge on how to build a society, manage resources, and foster resilience in the face of overwhelming change. The philosopher George Santayana's warning rings truer than ever. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In an era of our own environmental and social challenges, the lessons of these forgotten civilizations are not mere curiosities, they are urgent guides. Their stories invite us to look deeper into the layers of our own local histories, to support the archaeological efforts that bring these silent voices back to light, and to recognize the profound value in the diverse ways humanity has found to live and thrive. We would love to hear which of these lost civilizations resonated most deeply with you, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining this exploration and for your curiosity that helps keep these forgotten worlds alive.